If you're receiving SNAP benefits or thinking about applying, I want to start by asking you something important. Are you worried about how these new rules affect your situation? If so, please drop your exact circumstances in the comments. Whether you're between jobs, raising kids, living with health conditions, or even unsure about what paperwork you need, your story matters. I'll try to explain how these changes apply to your situation as clearly as possible. Now, here's what's happening. As of September 1st, 2025, the federal government's new SNAP rule changes officially kicked in. These rules are part of what's called the Big Beautiful Bill, and they affect millions of households across the country. Some people are going to see no changes at all, while others will suddenly face strict work requirements. Let's go step by step and break this down so you know exactly what's at stake. Starting September 1st, every state must begin enforcing new federal SNAP rules. These changes mean that certain people can no longer receive benefits unless they meet work, training, or volunteer requirements. The problem is, many states are still scrambling to figure out how to enforce these rules properly. Officials at DHS and DSHS have admitted they're still waiting for clear guidance from Washington, which means in some places, delays are already happening. But here's the good news. If you are already receiving SNAP benefits, your case cannot be cut off without notice. States are required to send letters or updates before making changes to your account. That said, this is why you need to pay attention to your mail, answer every notice, and make sure your information is up to date, because missing something as simple as an address change could lead to confusion and even delayed payments. Under the new rules, certain SNAP recipients must now work at least 20 hours per week, or a total of 80 hours per month, to keep their benefits. If you can't find a job, volunteering or attending an education or training program also counts. The government is saying, we want able-bodied adults to contribute in some way, not just collect benefits without activity. From their point of view, this is about pushing people back into the workforce. But this is where the controversy comes in. Many people are upset that these requirements are being forced through so quickly. Some argue 20 hours a week isn't much, but others say it's hard to meet if you don't have reliable transportation, childcare, or access to local training programs. The bottom line, this requirement is now law, and ignoring it could cost you your SNAP benefits if you fall into the affected group. The new requirements are very specific. If you're between the ages of 18 and 54, have no children under 18 in your household, and are physically and mentally able to work, then these rules apply directly to you. You must prove you're working, volunteering, or studying for those 20 hours a week. This is the group the federal government is targeting most, what they call able-bodied adults without dependents. On the other hand, there's a long list of exemptions. If you're pregnant, caring for a sick or disabled family member, living with a child under 18, receiving unemployment compensation, dealing with domestic violence, or struggling with physical or mental health conditions, you're not required to meet the 20-hour rule. Veterans, homeless individuals, people in treatment programs, and even foster youth under 25 are also exempt. This shows that while the rules are strict, they do leave room for protection if you fall into one of these categories. States now carry a huge responsibility. If they fail to enforce these new rules properly, the federal government can withhold funds, which could reduce benefits for everyone in that state. That's why state agencies are rushing to update their records and enforce compliance. They cannot afford to let ineligible cases slide by like they did during the pandemic, when information was frozen for years. For you, this means that updating your information is more important than ever. Household size, income, and even your current address must be correct. If your state agency sends you a notice and you ignore it, they could mark you as non-compliant. And here's the tricky part. Once a state is penalized by Washington, it doesn't just affect one person. It can reduce benefits across the board, which is why every single recipient needs to stay current with their case details. Another major issue is overpayments. During the pandemic, many states didn't require people to recertify their information. That meant some households kept receiving higher benefits even after their income changed or their work status improved. Now, states are being told, go back, review those cases, and claw back any extra money that shouldn't have been paid out. This is where people could get caught off guard. Imagine getting a letter months from now saying you owe thousands of dollars in overpaid benefits. Even if it wasn't your fault, you could be required to pay it back. States are more efficient at catching these mistakes than the federal government, so repayment demands may start coming sooner rather than later. For many households already struggling, that could be devastating. Fraud is another hot-button issue. States are under pressure to crack down on people who lied or withheld information to keep their benefits. That includes not reporting new jobs, hiding income, or failing to report changes in household size. Even if you made an honest mistake, if the numbers don't add up, your case could get flagged as fraud. That's why documentation is key. Keep pay stubs, volunteer logs, or class attendance records if you're meeting the 20-hour requirement. This way, if your case is ever reviewed, you have proof that you followed the rules. Without that documentation, it becomes your word against the state, and in most cases, the state wins. On top of the federal rules, some states are going even further by banning certain foods from being purchased with SNAP. This includes sodas, energy drinks, candy, and chips. The idea is to push healthier diets and reduce healthcare costs tied to junk food. But not everyone agrees with this approach. Some see it as the government micromanaging people's grocery carts. The rollout isn't the same everywhere. Some states began these bans right on September 1st, others will begin January 1st, and a few won't start until later in 2025. That means two families living in different states could have very different shopping restrictions, even though both receive SNAP. This is why staying informed about your specific state's policy is so important, because what applies in one state may not apply in another. So, what should you do right now to protect yourself? First, make sure your address is current with both DHS and the Postal Service, because every notice is going to arrive by mail. Second, if you fall into the work requirement category, start tracking your hours immediately. Even if your state hasn't sent instructions yet, be ready to show documentation. And finally, ask questions. If you're not sure whether you qualify for an exemption, don't guess. Find out. Leave a comment here, call your local office, or look up your state's SNAP policy updates online. Every case is different, and what saves one person from losing benefits might not apply to another. Being proactive is the best defense against losing the help you rely on. To sum it up, the SNAP rule changes that began on September 1st are now in effect. For some, nothing will change. For others, the work requirements could completely reshape whether or not you qualify. States are under pressure, exemptions are available, and overpayment recovery is very real. So, I'll end the same way I began. If you are in a specific situation and you're unsure how these changes affect you, please share it in the comments. Your story could help not just you, but also others watching this video who are in the same position. Stay alert, stay updated, and let's get through these changes together.